Hi, this is Doctors in Utopia. This is Lovolution Village, and this is being recorded at Access Tucson on Broadway in Tucson, Arizona. This is such a wonderful place, Access Tucson. It has given me a voice for 7 years, and I really appreciate what it has done. It has allowed me to reflect on my life, to make me a better person, and to help society become more conscious of itself. I am very upset that the City Council in Tucson has chosen to underfund the station. It's a real tragedy. There were people here who had careers here, who helped run the station, and they eliminated the possibility of this continuing in the way that it has for all these years, which has been a place of free speech. To some of us, free speech is the essence of democracy. Without free speech, what do we live in? We live in a society that really cannot hear all the voices, and therefore it cannot hear all the possibilities that need to be discussed in order to know how to make the democracy happy. And that's what we're losing. Access Tucson will change. It will become a place where people can still broadcast if they have money. Now, right now, any person, a homeless person, can get a Access Tucson account and join me here at this desk and present their ideas. Now that's what true democracy is. So that's what we're losing here with the City Council only funding it for 6 months and making Access Tucson have to figure out how it can become part of the market economy and therefore lose the ability to serve everyone. Now, with that said, I'm going to talk about something that I recently attended, and this is a radical idea. This is ideas that you will not hear on mainstream TV. And that's why I love Access Tucson, because it allowed me to present ideas that you're not going to hear anywhere else. I'm going to start this slideshow by showing you a picture of Montreal, Quebec, Canada, where I went a month ago to this Congress. It's the Basic Income Earth Network. I didn't know anybody there, but my friend Jessica told me about this organization, which is for creating a movement for basic income, basic guaranteed income. I went, whoa, that is a utopian idea. That is something I could really get in back of because it's so necessary in order for us to have equality. It's sort of like what Access Tucson has been doing all these years, providing people with an account that is equal to everyone so that everyone has an equal voice. Well, basic income is similar to that. And that is a picture of Montreal with all of their skyscrapers. I was in downtown Montreal staying at McGill University, and the Congress was at the law school. The first meeting that I attended the day before the Congress began was the U.S. Basic Income Network. And then this was their opening meeting. I got to meet other Americans who all agree that we should have a basic income in the United States. Now, this group was very interesting and it was diverse. there was a libertarian there, but most other people there, it seemed like to me, all agreed that we need to build up our social economy and take money away from the American corporations and move that money into helping people. Poverty is an invention. It's a human invention that causes suffering, and there's no need to have it, especially in the digital age. And we all agreed. It was heartwarming that so many Americans can be in a room such as this and come together in solidarity behind an idea. To know more about the US Big, go to usbig.org, and you can become a member. It's free, and I joined it today. The first lecture was given by this Dr. Reid. She is the past president of the Canadian Medical Association. She's an emergency room doctor. And she just gave a brilliant speech about the problem of poverty in Canada. You know, I grew up thinking that Canada was a better country than the United States. When I was young, people were going to Canada in order to resist the draft. This was during the Vietnam War, and Canada's borders were open for draft dodgers to go and live there so that they wouldn't have to fight the war in Vietnam. Now that was a big, beautiful place that people were able to go to. And during that time, they had more social programs to help people, and their medical care was open. But it's not like that anymore. The Canadian government has experienced the neoliberal politics the way that the United States has. And in this neoliberal philosophy, it's based on individualism and the individual taking responsibility for their own economic well-being and cutting benefits for people who need them. The Canadian government has done the same thing. And this shows you a diagram that Dr. Reid showed us. And in this, it's difficult to see because it's small, but 50% of the sickness in Canada is caused through social institutions, homelessness, the lack of good health care, the status of Indigenous people. And this is very similar to the United States. And she said her conclusion is that we must end poverty. In Canada, 1 out of 7 children live in poverty. 1 out of 10 adults live in poverty. And now, I'm not sure what the statistics are in the United States, but I would think that they'd even be more. In the richest country in the world, we have such a division now between the rich and the poor. People who never have to think about money or how they're going to pay their electric bill, and people who are so stressed out because they don't know how they're going to pay for basic utilities such as water and electricity. This is a crime. It is a crime that we have a dialogue going in this country to blame the poor, blame the victims of a capitalist society that doesn't provide a living wage, nor is it even trying to solve the problem of unemployment. So the Canadian Medical Association recommends that a guaranteed annual income could be a way to eliminate poverty. And they're asking for pilot programs funded by the federal government in order to experiment with giving people a guaranteed income to see how it changes their situation. And you have to remember that stress is one of the main killers, and it is so, of course, doctors want to eliminate stress in our lives so that we live better, so that our heart and lungs and liver are healthy, and that we don't fall into addictions because of the depression of not having enough money or having to see our children being raised in poverty. And this was a image that I saw as I'm walking back to the dorm room that I stayed at McGill. And you can see this sculpture. It was it was about a luminosity. And here the people are being drawn to an ideology, and some of them are scared, and some of them are embracing the future. And this is very similar to how I see universal basic income as a way for us to go into the future, towards the light, towards the new paradigm. And yes, there is fear, but we can breathe through that fear and walk forward with our head in dignity, and no one having to live with the stress of not having their basic human needs met. This is Carl, and he's one of the founding members of the US BIG, and I was very impressed with him. He's brilliant. He's the one that puts out the newsletter, and he is a good contact person for anyone who becomes a member of the US BIG. And there he is addressing the Congress. And there is this trilogy that I thought was very significant. Equality is the goal, structural change is the path, and the art of politics and policymaking is the instrument. Now, how I see this happening is through a grassroots movement pushing this idea forward, and we're seeing that happening now with this Congress and this idea growing exponentially throughout the world. The Congress was composed of people from so many different areas of the world, from Asia, from Europe, from Latin America, from South America, from North America, and from Indonesia. I met some people from many Europeans. So this is an attractive idea the world over. There were also people from the Green Party. The Green Party is the only party that is a global party. And so universal income fits into that category of being part of this a global network. That's why I'm so attracted to it, because people that know this show realize that I'm a globalist. I think that all our problems have to be solved both globally and locally, and it will take that new thinking, that pioneer spirit into globalism in order to transcend the problems that are caused by borders and ethnic groups and religious divisions. Because when we become earthlings, we realize how precious our environment is, and that we have to use conflict resolution in order to get along. That war is another idea that is obsolete, and I think we have to look at this whole idea of the war and poverty. They're handmaidens together, and they both can be eliminated when there is no more people in need of their basic human needs. This was one of the slides from one of the plenaries. This is the challenge of sustaining development with equality. And then sustainable development. And that is really where this Congress was headed, is talking about sustainability as far as giving people the first step to ending poverty. Because how can we truly be a sustainable society if you have vast majorities of people living in ghettos or favelas or other slum areas throughout the world? We cannot have sustainability when we just have a global elite who have their little enclaves where they fly their jets into their private islands, as the rest of us are suffering. That is not how justice looks. That's not how democracy looks. Even though this Congress was called Re-envisioning Democracy, it was pointed out, re-envisioning? We haven't even created it yet. And on a global level, no, we have not created a global democracy. This is a senator from Brazil, and he has been basing his campaigns for election to get elected on the idea of basic income. And he gave a very moving speech about the need for basic income as the foundation for a political campaign. And in this session, this workshop, I liked this Italian speaker, and he was talking about the idea of digital money and the money of the commons. These ideas are so appealing when you think of banking as digital, which it has become. Money is just transferred electronically over the lines in a blink of an eye. So why not set up accounts for people and put the money that they need in order for their basic human needs into their accounts? First step to becoming global citizens is your right to the global commons of natural resources that is a birthright when you take your first breath. That air is collectively yours. That sunshine is shining down on you as well as the rest of the planet. And for the materials, for the resources that are coming from the earth, that is your earth too. And you need to be paid for being alive. And this was a speaker from Indonesia. And here is some of his proposals of how to fund basic income. So it's not just a moral education of why we should end poverty, but how we can actually do it. And there were a lot of people who had ideas on how to fund basic income. Of course, my favorite way of funding it is to end such programs as the F-35 fighter jet that might even be coming into Tucson. Because why do we need that fighter jet? And why do we need all these drones that are killing people? Another basic step is to stop the military-industrial complex and become an economy of empathy and compassion. Now, these are the basic principles behind a progressive platform. And this is what we really are struggling against. The inhuman, uncompassionate way that the government and bureaucracy treats poor people by not giving them resources or demanding they take certain jobs, so forced labor in order to get your benefits, making them fill out forms after forms and chase these jobs that give them no meaning, and the inability to have family life and friends because they're always searching for these jobs that are not even available. So this cruel bureaucracy in the United States to move into a system of compassion and empathy. And of course, that is the elimination of poverty and the end of war. This was a man from Australia, and I really enjoyed some of his things. You can see how he talks about green growth and slow growth. This was one of the big controversies at the Congress about growth. Now, will basic income create growth in the economy, or will it cause degrowth? Now, many scholars feel that we have limited resources on the planet. I mean, that's a fact. And so we need to go into a no-growth economy. Now, that is a mature economy. It's like a human being. When we grow to a certain height, and then we plateau. We don't grow anymore. Then we grow inwardly. We grow creatively. That's where our economy needs to go. We no longer need to grow like a cancer cell. We need containment so that we all can share in the global commons and breathe the fresh air and drink the good water. And to do that, we don't need to grow, especially our population and the capitalist way of development. So how I see it is that we need to go to degrowth. We need to stop the military-industrial growth of the economy. And then we need to re-examine how to build the sustainable world. And he was talking about the decoupling of growth and carbon, because the other big problem that needs to be addressed is what to do about the carbon, the burning of fossil fuels. Do we put a carbon tax on it? Now, somebody was advocating for that. Put a carbon tax on the burning of fossil fuels. So you'll pay more if you go to Europe in a jet, or you pay more at the gas line. And that will pay for basic income. I'm thinking about that. Yeah, I mean, that is one way to cut down the carbon use, because a lot of people will not be able to afford traveling with using fossil fuels. Well, I have so much more to say about this, and I guess I'll see you every other month, because that's what's happening because of these budget cuts. It's every other month that producers can be on Access Tucson. So from me to you, I bless you, and universal basic income.